Welcome back, listeners, to another episode on our podcast. I'm your host, Karli. Today's story is called The Little Boy in the Closet. Yet again, is from an author I really do respect and I enjoy reading. This story is from back in the 80s. So let's dive deep. It starts. Eager Allan Poe would have loved this setting. The road turns to gravel, the two traffic lanes narrow into two tire ruts in the dirt. And straight ahead, a late summer sun hangs as if suspended from the thick orange clouds that streak in layers across the horizon. On the right, a lazy stream slices through rolling hillsides of a lush farmland. The fields are blotted in the green of their bounty. And to the left, rising over a gentle slope, is Skull Hill. It is a setting almost too surreal to be real. The road is called Bootleg Road, and the house was built by someone named Schrock. And that house, its owners say, is haunted. Those owners would rather not be identified in this story, so let's call them Tom and Jane. On the night of the interview, the farmyard is a cacophony of geese honks, duck quacks, horse whinings, chicken clucks, dog barks, and sheep bleats. Jan laughs as she tries to raise her voice over the noise. She feels the richness, the royal purity of the setting. A craggy tree is silhouetted in the sunset, and a low mist begins to form along the stream bed in the valley. Jane and Tom love their old farmhouse, and even an eerie presence there won't be enough to chase them away. They had their eyes on the property for a while. The 2.5 story brick home was vacant for many months before Jan and Tom made settlement. They were thus given the opportunity to gain access to the house and prepared to make some changes that would fit their lifestyles. Tom tells the first rather disturbing story. We were doing some measuring to the house before we bought it, he says, with some redesigning in mind. And then this is where how the story begins. I was in the one upstairs bedroom, measuring away. I opened one of the closet doors and saw what appeared to be a small boy. He was semi transparent. In other words, the shape was there, but there was no flesh tones. Exactly. Well, he continued, I slammed the door shut and went, ah. You know how you get goosebumps? That's when and what I felt. Tom says the little boy was about 4 feet tall and stood erect in the closet, sort of eyeballing me. Tom continues, you could almost look through him. You could see the wall behind him, but you could tell that it was a boy. Despite this frightened vision, Tom and Jen followed through and purchased a home. They moved in during the winter of 1986. Within a couple of months, it was Jan's turn for a ghostly encounter. It was about 4 o'clock in the morning. She recalls my little girl was less than a year old. I had just gotten her back to bed and I was returning to my room. I felt someone watching me. I looked over toward my bureau, and there was a young woman standing in front of it. I could see through her. She was all white. She took one step and seemed to be starting to take another one when she just disappeared. Jan adds that the entire apparition was white, for she remembers that it had long hair and a long flowing gown. When she disappeared, she says, I tried to go back to sleep, but I couldn't. The couple virtually forgot about the incidents what took place early in their lives in their new residence until the springtime of 1987, when the little boy in the closet appeared once again. Tom was working in an outbuilding when he ambled up the hill to the house for a break. I walked through the living room, looked toward the staircase for some reason, and that's where I seen the same ghostly boy who was sitting there on the steps. I think I yelled something and I gasped. I turned away for a second and he or it was gone. It was the exact same silhouette I saw before. The farmhouse was built in 1886, but it is believed the original section of the structure, the kitchen, dates back to 1772. There is no evidence that any tragedies ever occurred in the house, although there is some indication that there was a fire in the old section at some time. Jan had experienced other strange things in the house and the barn. She has seen what she described as a ghostly vision of a horse in one of the stalls of the barn. She has felt a very distant kiss. Oh, sorry, very distinct kiss on her cheek in the middle of the night when she was all alone. Telephones and televisions have turned themselves on and off, and visiting friends have heard footsteps and slam doors while they were house sitting for Tom and Jane. Even their 3-year-old son Danny has experience. One night, Jan says, we heard Danny chatting away in his room. I went up to his room and told him he was supposed to go to sleep. I asked him who he was talking to. He said, I was talking to people on the wall. Kid stuff, probably. But then, so why do Jan and Tom stay in this house? Tom is quick to answer. I have to believe what I see to a degree, he says. I'm not sure what causes it, but as long as they're not offensive or intolerable, it doesn't bother me. Jan agrees. We're living in their house. That's the way I look at it, she says. Oddly enough, through researching deeds and property transfer records, they discovered that, with almost no exception, the house has changed ownership every 4 years. Tom and Jan had lived there for 2 years. As of this writing, I guess we have 2 years until the really weird stuff starts to happen. Jan quipes. And that is the end of the story. Like I said, it's called The Little Boy in the Closet. It comes from the 80s, but yet again, really truly good books, really good writer. And like I always say, be kind, be nice, and blessed be. Love y'all.